Today I'm going to give you a speech concerning violent video gaming. When the Video Games Rating Enforcement Act was introduced to the House of Representatives in 2015, its purpose was to provide age-based content rating determined by the Entertainment Software Ratings Board, or better known as the ESRB, which would allow parents to have a better understanding of the content of the game. Video games came into the public eye over 30 years ago, but they have since exploded in popularity. In 2011, video game sales reached between 16.3 and 16.6 billion. I want to take a little time and focus on violent video gaming and the need for greater restrictions on these games and why. While doing research, I came across several articles that talk about the dangers of violent video gaming in adolescents. Content analysis have shown that violence is a key element in video games. Almost 90% of the games contain violent content, and 40% of the games include serious violent content against other characters. If you have children or young teens in your home, I would encourage you to pay close attention to this speech today. It is important that we protect our children's minds and overall well-being as they grow into adulthood. The ESRB Entertainment Software Ratings Board, which was required by the Video Gaming Rating Enforcement Act, has several different ratings, which include the following. We have early childhood, which is EC, everyone 10 and over. You have kids to adults, which is pretty new. Then you also have teen, mature, 17 plus. You have adults only, and then you now have one that's called rating pending. Even though we have all these in play by the ESRB, are parents really paying close enough attention to these ratings, and are these ratings enough? I will now talk about violent video games and their restrictions, potential dangers, and the effects on adolescent children. The use of video games is at its peak during adolescence. American youth 8 to 18 years old play approximately 1.15 hours of video games per day. The average time spent on gaming has continually increased over the last several years. 24 minutes per day in 1999, 49 minutes per day in 2004, 73 minutes in 2009, and now, as of 2019, gamers are playing for 7 hours, 7 minutes each week, if not more. The majority of the studies on violent video games and their effects have posed a question on whether violent video gaming increases aggressive behavior and aggressive thoughts. According to an analysis of 136 studies, that exposure to video game violence was associated with higher levels of aggressive behavior, aggressive cognitions, aggressive effects, desensitization, and decrease in prosocial behavior. Longitudinal effects of violent video games on aggression in Japan and the United States. Pediatrics, page 122. When video games were first developed over 20 years ago, they had very simple demographics and were not very realistic, which may explain why kids were not engaged in the game as much as they are now. Today, the video game industry is big business, and with the improvement of virtual reality technology, video games will only become more realistic and more immersive. When someone gets killed, for instance, the blood splatters across the screen and the sound effects are very realistic. It wasn't like that 20 years ago. Let's use Mortal Kombat for an example, a fighting game developed by NetherRealm Studios and published by Warner Brothers. This is a fighting game in which players engage in one-on-one battles against characters from the Mortal Kombat universe. Players punch, kick, throw, and use special attacks to drain opponents' life meters. Battles are highlighted by screams of pain, realistic gunfire, and exaggerated impact sounds. Large blood splatter effects occur frequently. Each character can perform various finishing moves, such as characters being dismembered, decapitated, and mutilated. Instances include a character's face and skull torn off. According to ESRB.org, M for mature plus 17 plus. This is what the 17 plus, this is what this game is for. This is what the rating is for this game. There are other video games on the market, but unfortunately, violent video games are the most frequently used. According to Circle Cornell EDU, scientists have conducted many studies that compare the aggression levels of participants when playing violent video games involving a weapon, to participants who play nonviolent games like a basketball game or a football game. Here's a brief summary of their conclusion. 90% of the teens report that their parents never check the rating on the video games. 1% say that the parents prevented a purchase of a game because of its rating. This is absolutely astounding statistics. Parents should be more aware of what their children are partaking of. As stated before, are parents paying close enough attention to the ESRB ratings? And even then, are we really reading the detailed contents of the game? Also, playing violent video games increases general aggression, aggressive thoughts, aggressive feelings, arousal of the heart rate and the blood pressure. Violent video games decreases helping behavior, like leading teens to be less helpful to others. Even short-term exposure to violent video games, say 20 minutes, leads to an increase in aggression. Now let's talk about the long-term effects of violent video gaming. According to the National Center for Health Research, research has shown that in the long term, video games can desensitize people to seeing aggressive behavior and even decrease someone's ability to feel empathy. In other words, the longer an individual is exposed to violent video games, the more likely they are to have aggressive behaviors, feelings, or thoughts. The World Health Organization added gaming disorder to its official list of mental health conditions. The Video Games Rating Enforcement Act has mandated that the ESRB rating label be displayed on all video games. IDs should be checked at the register for mature and adults only. Why then are so many children still playing these violent video games? I have presented some statistics and information concerning violent video gaming. In conclusion, I would like to leave you with a few thoughts. Research has conducted that states that violent video games lead to more aggressive behavior. But what should we do about it? Should we totally ban all violent video gaming, where only adults 18 and older can play them? Should parents pay closer attention to the age requirements and even then question whether their child should partake of it or not? The gaming stores can do their part in checking IDs to see if the person purchasing the game is of age. But what about the online games that children have access to download now straight from the internet? Yes, they need parental consent, but how many parents are actually even paying attention? Violent video games have been shown to cause aggressive behavior in adolescents. The statistics are alarming, and it doesn't look like they're going anywhere. If anything, they're becoming increasingly more popular. Parents and caregivers should be more aware and concerned about this growing problem. By far, the most prevalent cultural attitude towards games today is one of intolerance and unease, with major concerns including the increasing levels of realism in depiction of violence, gore, and bloodshed, as well as the antisocial behaviors that they appear to encourage. A few moments ago, I gave statistics of the percentage of parents who care or pay attention to the ratings on violent video games. Yes, there needs to be more restrictions on violent video games, but the responsibility ultimately falls on the parents. Why are parents not paying attention? Could it be that because they are considered games, that parents just think that's all innocent, that it's just a game? There are video game rating systems in place that informs all persons of the content of each game. But that is not stopping our children from partaking of these games. We must do our part as parents.